critical mass of members of parliament. I think it's a high time we said, no, you are elected people, you are representatives of the people. It's a high time you take leadership of most of these challenges. And we've tended to forget this, to put them aside, come as secondary, maybe contributors or even attendants. Why don't we give them that kind of leadership? Why don't we involve them as a critical mass to say, now, here it is, this is a challenge, you must bear to this and produce results. Set targets, targets which can be monitored, evaluated, and given marks, and they either give you 0 or a good percentage. But this business of not making use of the members of parliament, I think is a high time we put that aside and say, you are the leaders of the people, you represent the people's interests. And by the way, most of these people, not all of them, by the way, they are very charismatic. They tend to be followed. They tend to be listened to. Whatever their views are, people tend to follow them. They guide. They lead naturally. And I think it's important that maybe we involve them. That was my one other very, very important. What have we done in Uganda? In Uganda, we are about 375 members of parliament. Out of those, 84 members of them belong to the DRR forum. And what has happened? They have made some transformation of sorts. Of course, using their leadership, we've had, she's just gone out. We've had to press and ensure that we have a policy. One of the, I don't know the best, but it's one among those good ones. We are now working on a law at a regional level. Uganda, I think, is the only first Ugandan country in Africa to have a parliamentary caucus on disaster risk reduction. Yes. Yes. And we went ahead. Yes. And we went ahead and influenced the East African region. As we talk today, a bill is in its second reading phase to introduce a law on DRR covering the 5 East African countries. Supposing ECOWAS did the same. Supposing South African countries did the same. We would have covered most of this. But because we realized that the leadership by members of parliament was critical and important. So those of you who are members of parliament from here, go here out immediately after here. Start, even if you are 10 members of parliament, and start a focus on DRR. You will not realize how much potential you will have. Even in these resources you are talking about. Those of you who know my president, his major concern was, and still is, majorly, security, Pan-Africanism, security, Pan-Africanism. Until very recently, because of our insistence, he has started talking, yes, we now have a minister for disaster. A full-fledged cabinet minister for disaster management, yes, under the office of the Prime Minister. He has now started talking about disasters. And in fact, I'm looking for an opportunity to meet him and say, hey, look here, we need much more money than what you are giving now. And it will certainly come to pass. It will be there. The money will be there. I wish everybody could be talking. That issue will no longer be an issue of investment. All that we are talking about is because we have very little resources available to look at this particular concern. And finally, I want to say thank you so much for this. Maybe we need to involve members of parliament.
Thank you very much for your contribution. But I would like to say that we have earlier on challenged Mr. Abdou Sane from Senegal, who is also a parliamentarian, to network all the parliamentarians, not only Uganda and Senegal, but across African countries, so that they can carry out a proper, articulated advocacy around the continent. Yeah, lady.
Thank you very much, Person. I am Masiku Solujaiku from Lesotho, the focal person for DRR. I would like to